And we're back. Welcome back to another True Crime Time with Junebug. That's me. And I'm trying harder to get these out faster because people seem to like them. Thank you for the love on the last one. But welcome back to another True Crime Time. And Dinky Sue's over here. And I got my spray bottle in case she decides to knock my background down again. Or try to eat the cord, or many other things Suzanne has done. So if you hear a little tingly bell, that's the Dinky Sue. Yeah, go play with your toys. And not the loudest ones like last time. But thank you for like the over 500 views on my last true crime. It was a pretty positive reception. Y'all made my day. First, two things. One, I have Shell Shocked from the Michael Bay Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle song, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle movie stuck in my head. I don't know why. And then two, are you thinking, Junebug, you wore that shirt in the last video? Wrong, this one's slightly different. I guess I like blue, white striped off the shoulder shirts for recording. So I found this book at a Goodwill and I read it, as one does with books. And there was this guy mentioned a couple times in here. I'm like, I gotta look up this fella they keep mentioning. Because in a book about herbs, anytime they mention like a human multiple times, it kind of catches your eye. Because it's like just little... So this dude that will be mentioned in today's case was mentioned a couple times in there. So it stood out. So I had to look him up. And that is what we're telling today. So today we are talking about Cora Henrietta Crippen, or she's been known as Belle Elmore later in her life. For simplicity, I will just call her Cora throughout this story. Now this takes place January 31st of 1910. So we're going back like over 100 years. And Cora's about 36, 37, and I always mention the age in case people have issues with younger people being involved in the cases, or if it's the same age as yourself and that bothers you personally. And this takes place in Holloway, London, which I think this is my first case I've covered that isn't in the US, I think. And the status of this is solved? Question mark. That seems to be my go-to the past few videos, is solved. But I always start with some pop culture references to see if any of you have heard of this. But honestly, there were so many. And many of them were in the 40s and 60s. I think there's some in the 50s, but it was like 40s and 60s I saw the most. And they're very small and obscure, or they're just straight up about the case. So it's not like there's a NCIS episode based on this or something, or in a random herb book. That's where I learned. I did more research than just the herbs. So there wasn't really anything that stood out to me. Maybe if you were a boomer or a boomer's parents, maybe? Anyway, Cora was born to a Russian-Polish father and a German mother, and I could not find their names. And on either September 3rd of 1873 or September 1st of 1872 in Brooklyn, New York, she was born. One of the two. I saw varying dates. I saw those two dates the most. So beginning of September in 73 or 72. Now her birth name was, bear with me, Kunigunde? Makamatsky? And I literally saw nothing about her family or upbringing. Literally nothing. Now, so we're gonna jump to her early 20s when she was working as a music hall singer under the stage name Belle Elmore. But again, I'm just gonna call her Cora because she has a birth name, the Cora name, and then Belle, her stage name. So I'm just gonna say Cora for the simplicity factor. And then around this time, she will also marry a homeopathic doctor. I know that's like controversial, homeopathic doctor named Dr. Holly Harvey Crippen. And that is the man I heard about in my herb book. Do you need to see it again, the herbs? Now, Crippen, I'm gonna call him Crippen for, again, simplicity reasons. It's just Crippen. He was born September 11th of 1862 in Coldwater, Michigan. I haven't been there, but Michigan, that's where I live. And he was the only surviving child to his parents, which is very sad. And he attended the University of Michigan and the Cleveland Homeopathic Medical College. And he was married to Charlotte Jane Bell until she died of a stroke in 1892. It was a very short marriage, unfortunately. And then, weirdly enough, he gave his son from that marriage to his parents to care for, and they lived in California. So I don't know when they left Michigan and went to California, but they lived in California, and he's like, here you go. And I literally have no other information on the son. But his name was Holly Otto Crippen, and he was born 1889, and I saw he passed in 1974. And he started after giving up his son and graduating from college, and his wife died. He started to practice quote-unquote medicine, because I know homeopathy medicine isn't sometimes considered medicine. I'm still not quite sure 100% what it is. But he started to practice his homeopathic medicine in New York City shortly after this. But again, I don't know how Cora and Crippen met, but they ended up marrying in 1894. We started the story with Cora, then we talk about Crippen. They got married in 1894. No idea how they met or how long they courted or dated for. Now, there's two things to know about Cora from my research. One, it said she was overbearing and had a dominant character, maybe a bit of a temper. I don't know if, because this was over 100 years ago, so I don't know if her dominant character, overbearing character, was what we would consider it nowadays. So I don't know if she was just an average woman today and they just thought because she spoke her mind and knew what she wanted that she was overbearing and kind of meh. So I don't quite know. Or maybe she was, even by today's standards, dang girl, calm down. I don't know, but that is what is said about her. Now, the second thing to know about Cora is she couldn't really sing, and she didn't have much talent from what I read, which doesn't seem to go with her occupation of working in a music hall. She did it though. There's no auto-tune back then. You gotta be good. Now, in 1897, Cora and Crippen, married, moved to England. Now, he couldn't practice medicine in England because I think it was because his degrees were, he was certified in the US, so he just couldn't practice over there. But he worked as a distributor of patent medication instead. I don't know how similar that is to a pharmacist, or if he's just selling them. I don't know. Now, Cora socialized and tried her best to get her career going. She's trying. Remember, she can't really sing. Now, I thought this was kind of interesting. Crippen was also Cora's stage manager. Maybe that was common back then, I'm not sure. He was so much so her manager that he was fired from his real job for spending too much time being her manager. So we're going forward to the year 1900. So both Cora and Crippen had jobs at this time. Cora was the treasurer of the Music Hall Ladies Guild in London. So, I mean, she's not on stage per se, but she's involved in what she loves. And Crippen became a manager of Drovot's Institution for the Deaf. So he must have been good at being a manager, because that's what he ended up doing. Now, at this new job, Crippen hired a young typist named Ethel Leneve. I assume it's pronounced Leneve. And she was about 17, 18 at the time. And Crippen was about 38. Just so you know. Now, jump forward to 1905. Because remember, this is over 100 years ago. We don't have info for every single year. It's just kind of, this happened in this year and then to this year. So that's why it's a bit jumpy. But from 1900, now we're to 1905. That was a big year for Cora and Crippen. They moved into a bigger home in Holloway where they could take in lodgers for extra income. So I think they lived there, and then I don't know if they rented out rooms or like the bottom half of their home, but they rented it out to lodgers. It was also around this time that Crippen caught Cora sleeping with one of the lodgers. So that's not good. So Crippen, he's like, whatever, and he took Ethel as his mistress, which we could probably all see that coming. So I don't know if he was mad at all about Cora or if he was like, sweet, now I feel like it's fair, I could go after Ethel. Don't know. And I do want to say different sources said different years. Some said earlier she became his mistress, some said 1907, some said 1905, so I was going with the middle one at 1905. Now, another side note from what I saw in my research, apparently in 1907, Cora and Crippen stopped having physical relations, it said, and they started sleeping in separate bedrooms. Okay, well, that's a fun fact for you. So their marriage isn't doing great, which I would just say why not get a divorce, but this is the early 1900s, probably not a thing you really did. Now, things continue this way, them having their affairs and separate bedrooms until January 31st of 1910. They hosted a dinner party for two of Cora's closest friends, who were the Martinettis. It was just another couple they had over. And was said everything was fine at this dinner party except for when Crippen didn't show a guest where the bathroom was, and and Cora got very upset that he didn't show him where the bathroom was, because apparently it was upstairs, down a hall, like not just like right over there. She got upset, and the guests left around 1 a.m. Now this was the last time Cora was ever seen alive. So knowing this, people became suspicious in the next coming weeks when they didn't see her. Because remember, a big part of her job was like socializing, trying to get in with the inner circle of the singers that she so wanted to be a part of. She had a couple famous friends from what I saw. One was Lil Hawthorne. She was a strong woman. I think I can put a picture here. So like it was very odd not to see her. Now, first, Crippen just said she went back to America, which could happen. I mean, they're from America. She could go see family, or she's got to fill out paperwork. Just very reasonable. And then his story changed to say she had fallen ill. I don't know if he meant she fell ill in America or if she was just ill in their house. But either way, I mean, she could have been overseas and caught something on the travels. Again, not too crazy. But then he changed the story again. And he settled with that she had died. She just died. Again, I guess it is possible she went to America, got something, and died. But changing your story 3 times to make it like more permanent, again, it's plausible, but it just seems a bit odd, knowing the relationship was not good. And like I said, it is plausible, went to America, got sick, died. But what's suspicious was that Miss Ethel, his mistress, started wearing some of her jewelry in the next couple weeks after she was last seen. And she had moved in with Crippen before the month was done. In the month of February. That is the shortest month. Did you know? So that makes it a bit more suspicious, don't you think? Now, Cora's friends contacted the police with this information, and Crippen's home was searched, and they found nothing. And they were told by Crippen that Cora had actually, he's changing his story a 4th time, that she had actually run away with another man named Bruce Miller. He was in like the theater industry. I think he was a director or something. He was a legit person. Said she ran away to America to be with Bruce. And Crippen said he was so embarrassed by this that he just didn't want to tell. He'd rather just say she was dead, I guess. Which, rude. Now, I do want to mention, from different sources, I saw different things. Some said the police bought this and they're like, your marriage sucked, it makes sense you would leave. But then I saw other sources that said they're like, okay, sure, Crippen. But they left either way. But either way, I saw that they wanted some confirmation from Cora herself. Like a telegram, something that Cora was alive, to tell her friends. Like the police could tell her friends she's alive, she's fine, she's in America. But either way, if the police bought it or not, Ethel and Crippen made a run for it. Yeah, the next day, after telling the police that story and they found nothing in the house, they out of there. Crippen shaved his mustache, which is apparently what he's famous for. And Ethel dressed as a boy. And they were traveling as quote-unquote father and son. Totally not suspicious, you know what I mean? Everyone does this when they're innocent. So they ran to Brussels, and then from there to Antwerp, and then to Canada aboard the SS Montrose. I don't know if that's how you pronounce it, that's just how I wanted to say it. So they're going to Canada. Now, around the same time that they're like starting to go to Canada on the boat, the police had gone back to their place for just another check-in. I don't know what exactly for, but they were going back. And they found them missing from the home. And that's a bit suspicious to them. So they searched the home one more time and found the remains of a body under some loose bricks in the cellar. Not looking good. It was said the body was, quote, headless, limbless, and boneless, end quote. Basically just a torso they found, like, under these loose bricks in the cellar. Don't know how they missed it the first time, but they did. The torso they divulged, they found was a woman, and later identified as Cora's, unfortunately. Now, her body had traces of a drug called, I'm gonna butcher this, but I'm gonna try, scopolamine in it, which it can be used in small doses for like calming effects, but can easily be overdosed on, like very easily. And that is why he's mentioned in her book, because he used, I should have like gone to an actual page here. Let me see the glossary, the index. Oh, okay, it's not listed. Only the herbs are listed in the index. But he was listed as using some of the herbs that have the substance in them. That's how we're coming full circle. And I do want to note, unfortunately, Cora's head and limbs and skeleton were never recovered. Don't know where those are, or why he didn't, like why he kept the torso and the other things were gone, I don't know. But with this finding a body in their basement, the search was definitely on for them. So meanwhile, they're on the boat heading towards Canada, and they find the body in the basement. But on the boat, the captain of the Montrose was growing suspicious of the father and son duo, because it was stated that they were very affectionate and always holding hands, which is typically not something father and sons do unless it's like a small child you're holding their hand to so they don't get lost. Usually not a full-grown son. And it was also noted that the son's clothes were fitting really weird and baggy, like wasn't showing the face much. So, a bit suspicious. So Captain Kendall telegraphed a message back home about the duo, like, these people are really weird. Either they're a creepy father and son, or they're criminals. There's no in between. Please come help. Click. I get that's not a telegraph, but you know, it's easier to demonstrate that way. Now, Chief Inspector Dew, like Honeydew, followed the lead, and he boarded a faster ship to catch Crippen as he was arriving. So he was like, give me the fastest boat. And he hops on, and he's, like, imagine they're going like this, and his ship is, so he can meet them right as they're coming off the boat. His hope is. I also want to note, I saw a hypothesis that if Crippen and Ethel had just gone to third class, they probably would not have been noticed. Now, things came to a head on July 31st of 1910, when Chief Inspector Dew, confronted Crippen after he got off his ship like took off his disguise. He was disguised as a pilot by saying who and where he was from. Then after a pause, Crippen, with like Ethel over here, stated, quote, "Thank God it's over. The suspense has been too great. I couldn't stand it any longer," end quote. And then it said he held out his hands for the cuffs. So they were both arrested, him and Ethel, and were sent back to England 3 weeks later. Now, once back in England, Crippen will be tried first. They wouldn't be tried together. Crippen would go first, and then Ethel would be tried as an accessory. So his trial started October 18th of 1910 and will last until October 22nd. So 4 days later. Very, very, very short trial. Now, during that 4-day trial, it was argued how they couldn't necessarily ID the body, which I feel like IDing any body back then had to be very difficult. But then Crippen's also insisting that it's not Cora. The body was there before they rented the house or bought the house. And then they're arguing about, according to Cora's medical records, she had a scar on her abdomen in the same spot that this torso did. And then they were arguing if it was actually a scar or not. There's a picture of it. Can I put that in? I'll try. I don't get monetized anyway. What the heck? Why not? I haven't got enough viewers for that. Look at it. Now, they also were discussing how the torso was like wrapped in a pajama top, or there's pieces of it on there, but the pajama top belonged to Crippen. Like, he had the set and his shirt was missing. And now traces of like bleached blonde hair were found on it, which is very similar. The hair was very similar to Cora's. And also they were discussing how the drug found in the body, the scopolamine, Crippen had bought some of it a couple weeks prior to Cora going missing. That seems pretty damning if you ask me. Now, throughout this trial, the very short trial, it seemed Crippen showed no remorse for his dead wife. He was literally only concerned about Ethel's reputation, which I guess is sweet, but like that's not the focus right now, Crippen. Okay? Now, after the trial, it took the jury 27 minutes to find him guilty of murder. Now, Ethel was charged with being an accessory after the fact, but she was acquitted. Now, Crippen tried to appeal his case, but it was denied. And Crippen was also given the death penalty, which I feel like a lot more common back then. And he was hung and executed at Pentonville Prison in London at 9 a.m. on Wednesday, November 23rd of 1910. So, like, exactly a month later. Now, his last request before he was executed was to have a picture of Ethel and some of her letters buried with him. Not Cora, Ethel. And the request was actually granted. So he was buried with her picture and some of her letters. Now, aftermath. Let's start with Cora. As I said, the rest of her body was never found. And she was laid to rest at the St. Pancras and Islington Cemetery in East Finchley. But then again, it's like, was it truly her body or not? It seemed like it was. That's where she was laid to rest. Now, what happened with Ethel? Now, she was given everything in Crippen's will, but she was like barred from taking any of it because she did try. Because they said, like, no, you're not going to benefit from him murdering his wife, was basically the reasoning. And honestly, that makes sense. I'm pretty sure that building's been demolished and then rebuilt since then. So Ethel, she ended up moving to Toronto, Canada, seems to love Canada, and worked as a typist for 3 years until returning back to London under a new name. Her name now was Ethel Harvey. Very different. And she would later marry a man named Stanley Smith in 1915. They had 2 kids together, and she would pass away in 1967 at the age of 84. And then with Crippen, as we know, he was executed, but he was buried in an unmarked grave in Pentonville's grounds where he was hung. It was said soon after he was buried, someone planted a rose bush over his grave. I'm wondering if it was Ethel. It didn't say who, or if this is necessarily true, but I believe if it is true, I feel like it would have been Ethel. Now, it is stated that some of his relatives, like distant relatives, descendants here in Michigan, I don't know them, are trying to get his remains brought back here to the US. Don't know how that's going. I just saw that they're trying. Now, it was debated in the 2000s, I think around 2007-ish. It was really debated if he really did do this. A team, I believe it was at the University of Michigan, said the DNA could have been male, and Cora's great nieces offered some DNA, and it didn't match their sample of like the little sample they had that could have been Cora's. But this isn't super heavily relied on, their findings, because it was very new research at the time. It was only ever done, or was only done at this point in time by this one team, like ever. And the team performed this like test on a quote less than optimal sample, end quote, which that sample's over a century years old. I can understand how it might not be great evidence, but at the same time it could raise some questions, but I'm not entirely sure. What do you think? Yeah, that is the end of the Crippen case. It intrigued me after I saw it in my herb book. Do you want to see it again? Herbs! So it's like, let me look into this, and boy oh boy, what a tale. So what do you think? Do you think he did it, or that was some random poor soul in their basement and they just ran for the fun of it? There's not necessarily a ton of like physical, sciencey stuff to prove it was Cora and he did it. But again, this was also 1910. But the circumstances of him having only Ethel in his will, Cora was literally never seen again. He changed his story, he ran to Canada in a disguise, and the fact he said like, oh, the suspense was killing me when they caught him in Canada, it just seems very guilty to me. I could be wrong, so let me know what you think. Do you possibly think Ethel was the killer? I don't think so, but you never know. That is it for today. I hope you enjoyed, I guess. Oh, but that's why I said solved at the beginning, because it's somewhat debated if he actually killed Cora, but either way, there was a body in his basement. Not looking good. And I don't know what I'm doing next. Hopefully I can get it out faster. I'm trying to get these out faster. I'm trying. There's only so much one June bug can do. Anyway, have a good day, whatever day this comes out, and be safe. Be suspicious of father-son duos that are always holding hands. Bye!